Walking this trail 10 years from now, I would like to see just a few people on the trail, kind of like it is now, and people who are appreciative of the place, who aren't trying to change it. The cold, clear water. I mean, it's amazingly cold, clear water. And we're facing a drought cycle, maybe permanent in the West. And places like the Metolius that are spring-fed, that are more resilient than other places, are just going to become more important. And so I hope we continue to protect it. My name is Dewey. I'm the founder and former executive director of Central Oregon Land Watch. On this little tour of the Metolius we're going to take, first we're going to go to an area that's really special. It's a spring flowing into the river, and someone asked me, well, what's its name? It has no name. It's going to be a loud, hard-flowing river. What makes the Metolius Basin special is actually right behind me. It's the hydrology, the geology, and the resulting incredible habitat and scenery that results from it. It's incredibly cold, pure water that is habitat for species that are dying out elsewhere, such as bull trout. It's historically also been incredibly important to the indigenous peoples who have lived here, now represented by the three tribes, the Warm Springs tribes. We began our work with Land Watch in this area, we're in our fourth decade. And what prompted our work initially was all the cutting of the old growth trees in the Metolius. And though we succeeded in stopping the cutting of the old growth trees, it took 2 decades. And so the struggle over the past 40 years in particular has been keeping the Metolius as it was to the greatest extent possible. During the 1980s, Land Watch appealed a number of timber sales in the Metolius, and we started discovering not only that the Forest Service was cutting down the old growth trees, but it looked like they weren't even following their own rules and regulations. And we hired wildlife biologists from Oregon State University to come over and survey whether or not the Forest Service was leaving the number of wildlife trees they were to leave, or whether they were keeping logging outside of riparian areas, and whether or not they were doing the road closures they said they were going to do. And the researchers found a failure rate of the Forest Service somewhere between 70 and 100% of all units. Because of the severity of the problem, we decided to go file a lawsuit in federal district court around 1990, alleging a pattern in practice of violation of environmental laws. And though we ended up settling the case, probably the greatest importance of the case was that it helped persuade the Forest Service that the Metolius was not a place for them to get out the cut. It was a place to be protected for recreation. And within a couple of years, the mindset of the Forest Service changed dramatically to protecting, well, actually wildlife biologists and ecologists started coming in to be the rangers rather than timber people. So it was a real watershed moment in 1990. One of the greatest successes of Land Watch in protecting the Metolius has been our work for the bull trout. It's a threatened species. It depends on very cold water and really a majestic species. The Forest Service wasn't treating it like that. At one point, one of their recreation managers said that these are just Dolly Varden and you can go to North Carolina and see Dolly Varden. We prevailed on that issue, and true fisheries biologists from the Forest Service came in. And now this population is one of the healthiest, if not the healthiest, repository of the species in the West. In addition to bringing a lawsuit against the Forest Service, Land Watch and others felt that what was really needed was greater protection of the Metolius across the board. And so we began what we called the Save the Metolius campaign. And it was aimed at stopping the logging of the old growth trees, protecting the bull trout and other species, and stopping an incredible recreation plan that we dubbed Disneyland in the Pines, where the Forest Service was going to be building more bridges across the river, more campgrounds. And we won that battle, and we won even more than we were trying to win in some respects, because the Forest Service decided that the true measure for protecting an area is determining the carrying capacity of the area. And they determined in 1990, the early 1990s, that the Metolius had reached its carrying capacity. So no additional development should be done in this area. In the 2000s, the area was threatened again, but this time by private development. And it wasn't just a little private development, it was two big destination resorts that could have hundreds and hundreds of people, if not 1,000 additional people in or nearby the Metolius. We fought this on several fronts. First, legally challenging Jefferson County's attempt to approve these resorts. And for that, we lost at Jefferson County. We lost at the Land Use Board of Appeals. We lost at the Oregon Court of Appeals. And then we went to the Oregon Supreme Court and did a petition for review, which is not often granted by the court. But in raising our water issues and the need to protect the area, they accepted review. That was critical, not only because it looked like they were at least inclined to look at our case, but it gave the legislature the ability to pass a law to protect the area, because there were no vested rights, no approvals had been granted. It was still an open question, and so the legislature in 2009, by one vote, voted to protect this area as an area of critical statewide concern, the only such designation in the state. And that has protected the Metolius from destination resort development or any development that would deplete the water resources of the area. One of the nicest parts about my career as an attorney is that I represented for a number of years the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. And their outlook on protecting areas and their fights to maintain their sovereignty, I think should be copied by us. And the idea is fights, true fights, the most important ones are those that last for generations. No one generation should be expected to protect an area. It has to be passed on from one generation to another, to another, to another. It may take 100 years, and in defending a place, it will take forever. And so people need to understand that something as beautiful as this was protected over the past 100 years, over the past 1,000 years. And it's important that the future generations do the same. Probably the greatest threat to the Metolius in the future will be a death by 1,000 cuts. We've stopped the big logging, we've stopped the big resorts, but incrementally, counties like Jefferson County like development because that creates more property taxes for them. And with population growth in the area, more and more people want to move here. They want a special place to be. And the biggest challenge for Landwatch and other groups who want to protect the Metolius is to let it be. Let the Metolius just be as it is, as it was, and enjoy it for what it is, and stop trying to change it. It's a place that shouldn't be changed.